Hello there, my name is Hido and welcome to the Pantheon, where today we're in the realm of dragons and demons. What an interesting cross-section. It's Ziatora the Incinerator. It's just a big furnace. 6 mana for a 6/6 flyer, demon dragon as I've mentioned. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Ziatora the Incinerator deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target, and you create 3 treasure tokens. So this is combining some of my favourite things in Magic. Ramp, getting lots of mana and all that sort of thing. And also tossing massive creatures into your opponent's face. My very first commander deck was all around Gerard, Golgari Lichlord, and I just loved eating a massive idiot. But, really quite cool. It's nice to see it stretching out into a bit of red, because red has a lot of very large creatures and doubling power things, so it's good to see. And I would also like to see you joining me in this journey through Magic. Please subscribe and join me, and, going to make tons more videos like this, so come along for the journey. Now, without further ado, let's have a look at my top 5. So in at number 5, what do we have? Well, we've got Lord of Extinction, one of my favourite big idiots, and by God, this guy is a big idiot. 5 mana for a star elemental. Its power and toughness are each equal to the number of cards in all graveyards. Now, I don't know if you've ever played Magic. I imagine you have, considering you're watching this, but you're going to end up with a lot of things in your own graveyard, but also in your opponent's graveyards. This could easily be a 5 mana 40/40, and then our commander can sacrifice it, generate 3 tokens, and deal 40 damage to something. By Jove, that's incredible. Holy crow. Then we've got Beanstalk Giant, which, while not the biggest creature, it plays into ramp, and, ramping is incredibly important. 7 mana for a star, so its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. So, we're playing green. We're going to have a fair few lands, I believe. But the reason to play this is Fertile Footsteps. 3 mana for a sorcery adventure, so you can cast it either as the adventure from your hand or the Beanstalk Giant. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Then you exile this card and you can play its creature side from exile. So it's 2 cards in one, and it's ramp, and it's a massive big payoff idiot to sacrifice. Love it. Then we've got Multani Yavimaya Avatar, and one of the sort of sub-themes of this deck is bringing things back from the graveyard after we've sacrificed them, and Multani can do that himself. 6 mana for a 0/0 Reach Trample. It gets +1/+1 for each land you control and each land card in your graveyard. Then you can pay 2... and return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Return him from your graveyard to your hand, so you can recast him, sacrifice him again. Oh, incredible. And because of the tokens, the treasure tokens our commander is going to be making, we can use that mana, regurgitate it, like a mother bird, to its offspring or osprey. Just vomit the value back into ourselves. Love it. Then there's Galta Primal Hunger, just a nice big guy. 12 mana for a 12/12, although it costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control. So potentially just 2 green for a 12/12. That's good, and a lot of damage that we can throw at our opponents. Then we've got Grothama All Devouring. I love how big this creature is. 5 mana for a 10/8. By God, it's a worm. And whenever this creature attacks, you may have it fight Grothama All Devouring. All other creatures get that ability. So not just ours, but our opponents as well. Is that a good thing? Well, when Grothama leaves the battlefield, each player draws cards equal to the amount of damage dealt to Grothama this turn by sources they controlled. So this could end up drawing us tons of cards. Say we attack with, Lord of Extinction or something like that. We deal 40 damage to it on the fight. We get to draw 40 cards. Ah, so much value. Or we could maybe Blasphemous Act. That'll draw us a ton of cards. Or you could just sacrifice it to deal 10 damage and get 3 treasures. Just all around a great worm. Then there's Realm Seekers. Squeakers? What the hell am I talking about? 6 mana 0/0 enters the battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it, where X is the total number of cards in all players' hands. I've got a few cards in my hand. Hopefully our opponents do as well. Going to be at least maybe a 20-20. Pay 3, remove a 1/1 counter from it. Search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Perfect if you want to go for Cabal Coffers, Urborg, make tons of mana in black. So many good lands to search up. Brilliant stuff. Then there's Rubble Hulk, which is really cool for a couple of reasons. So it's a 6/6 star, so its power and toughness each equals the number of lands you control. A big theme here because green does generate us a lot of lands, but you can blood rush this card. So for 3 mana and discard it from your hand, target attacking creature gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of lands you control. So if you don't want to cast this, you can use that for a massive big attack, really pump up maybe our commander or something like that. Or one of our incidental creatures, then sacrifice it at end of turn for just 3 mana. And it's a cool little combat trick. Could potentially just outright kill someone. Very nice. So there you go. A nice collection of big idiots. Who doesn't love a big idiot? Then, pardon me, at number 4, we've got ways of making any creature into a big idiot. Because when I'm playing Mana Ramp and stuff like that, I like to play things like Wood Elves or Sakura Tribuilder. So potentially, let's make them into colossal threat with something like exponential growth. Double green, double X. Until end of turn, double target creature's power X times. Wow, that's pretty goddamn good. And one of the greatest ways to use this is on our commander and kill someone with command damage. So X would only have to be 2, and our commander is a lethal threat. It goes from 6 to 12, then to 24. Or we could just, buff one of our other creatures, sacrifice it, deal damage to our opponents using our commander's ability. So good. And the double X isn't that hard to reach with all of the treasures we're going to be generating. Then we've got Unleash Fury, a great way of doubling power. 2 mana for an instant. Double the power of target creature until end of turn. There you go. Nice and simple. Double that Malignus or something like that, or that Rubble Hulk. By God, we've got them. Then there's Unnatural Growth, a brilliant way to repeatedly double power. 5 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. So not only will this make our commander into a 12/12 flying threat, but all of our other massive threats are now even massiver. It's a massive attack. Hey, great band. Listen to Mezzanine, I think the album's called. I can't remember. But a good band. God Eternal Ronus is another wonderful way of doubling power. 5 mana 5/5 with Death Touch. When it enters, double the power of each other creature you control until end of turn. Those creatures gain vigilance. So, there you go. Nice bit of vigilance and doubling power. Hooray! Attack in. And if it dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, put it into its owner's library, 3rd from top. So it's repeatable. We could use this, sacrifice it to our commander. Then we put it on top. We draw a couple of cards, then do it all over again. Look at the cycle of life. Wonderful and horrific, because everyone will die. But, everyone dies inevitably, don't they? So let's double our power while we're in... I don't know. Anyway, let's have a look at number 3. So at number 3, we've got Prowling Geistcatcher and ways of taking advantage of the fact we're sacrificing. 4 mana for a human rogue. Whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile it. If that creature has a token, put a 1/1 counter on Prowling Geistcatcher. When it leaves the battlefield, return each card exiled with it to the battlefield under your control. So yes, we want to be reanimating things from the graveyard, but this circumvents it. If we're sacrificing things to our commander or a sacrifice outlet, then we sacrifice this, we get all of the end to the battlefield, everything, we just get to use them all over again. And this is just a really good way of protecting from board wipes. If you have a sacrifice outlet on the field, you just sacrifice all your massive dudes, goes under this guy dies, and then they all come back for a nice little party. Brilliant card to see. Then we got Crash the Blood Braided. 5 mana for a 3/3 human warrior. Whenever another creature is put into a graveyard from play, you may put X 1/1 counter on Crash the Blood Braided, where X is that creature's power. So, using our own massive creatures, this can instantly become a colossal threat. But it's not only our own creatures, it's our opponent's creatures. So when they die, it's going to get a ton of counters. It's just all around a wonderful card. I wish it had some evasion though. Although the art is incredible. Look how golden and shiny it looks. Brilliant. Then we've got Crash the Blood Braided. A 5-mana 3/3. I don't know what's happened there. I've just messed everything up. But there you go. Play 2 copies of Crash the Blood-Braided. Then a brand new card here is Riveter's Ascendancy. 3 mana for an enchantment. Whenever you sacrifice a creature, you may return target creature card with lesser mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Do this only once each turn. So a great way of rebuying maybe our smaller things. You know, if you're playing some I don't know, Night Howler or something like that, an aura which you can put onto things, but it's a creature as well. Ooh, technology. This could potentially bring it back if you're sacrificing something that costs more of it. So a great use case. So there you go. 2 copies of Crash, you know, 1 from original Alara and then 1 from the Commander deck. A great thing to play in Commander. So there you go. Wonderful to see. And that brings me on to number 2, and hopefully it's not Crash again. Oh no, it's Aetherworks Marvel. I think this card works really well in this deck for a couple of reasons. So 4 mana for a legendary artifact. Whenever a permanent you control is put into a graveyard, you get an energy. And you can tap and pay 6 energy to look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may cast a card from among them without paying its mana cost, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So obviously our commander's wanting to sacrifice big creatures, but what you've got to remember is our commander also creates treasure tokens. So whenever we sacrifice a treasure token, it's a permanent going to a graveyard. So we'll get an energy. So I think Aetherworks Marvel, you could easily activate it the turn you cast it, and you're getting a free massive creature because the deck's all about massive creatures. I think it just works really well in this style of deck. So to go along with it, here's another card that works well with the theme. Electrostatic Pummeler.
Sorry, I'm having trouble connecting to the internet. It looks like there's an issue with the router and echo device, so try restarting them. Unplug both of them, then plug the router back in. Wait 30 seconds. Once the router is back on and connected to the internet, plug in the echo device.
Alexa, stop! Electrostatic Pummeler, 3 mana for a construct. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. Pay 3 energy, it gets +X until end of turn, where X is its power. So another great way of doubling power here, and it works with the energy sub-theme. This episode has descended into madness. Then we've got Architect of the Untamed. If we're generating a lot of energy, let's use it for something else. 3 mana for a 2/3, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get an energy. And then you can pay 8 energy, I think it is. Create a 6/6 Colorless Beast artifact creature token. So a great sort of sacrifice thing there. You can sacrifice your 6/6s to deal 6 damage, get a couple of treasures that can get us some more energy. There you go, nice card that you could potentially include. Then, if we're talking about some ramp, I have throughout this episode, 2 mana for a 2/2 Servant of the Conduit. It enters, you get 2 energy, and you can pay an energy to add 1 mana of any color. Yes, it is a finite amount, but if you're building really into energy, and hopefully they print more energy cards in the future, this should work really well as just a standard mana elf. Then Glintsleeve Siphoner, 2 mana for a 2/1 human rogue with menace. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get an energy. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, draw a card and lose 1 life. It's a nice little resource to be playing around, and I think it fits well into the deck. Then, with all the big creatures we've got, yes, our commander cares about sacrificing them, but we might want to attack. So Gonti's Aether Heart is a 6 mana artifact that allows us to get an extra turn. So when it or an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, and remember the treasures that we're making are artifacts, so that's at least 6 energy right there. We can pay 8 energy, I think it is. I wish they'd just written a number to exile Gonti's Aether Heart and take an extra turn after this one. But if you don't want to use the extra turn, you could just use this to make constant amounts of energy that you can pump into other things. Then to finish off, on the reanimation sort of side of things, we've got Demon of Dark Schemes. 6 mana for a 5/5 demon. Flying, when it enters the battlefield, all other creatures get -2/2 until end of turn. Now we're playing a lot of absolutely colossal creatures, so that's really not going to affect us that much. Whenever another creature dies, you get an energy. Pay 3 and pay 4 energy. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped. Who cares if it's tapped, because we can just sacrifice it to our commander straight away. So a great use of energy and just a nice little board wipe built in. And, you know, worst comes to worst, sacrifice it to deal 5 damage and get 3 treasures. Ziatora can do so many things. So I'd play a little energy package. And that brings me on to number 1. And hopefully nothing happens in this section, because the last 2 have really fallen to pieces. But in at number 1, we've got, Christ, it's sideways, Flesh and or Blood, which is a sorcery that you can fuse together. So I'm going to have to rotate myself ever so slightly to be able to read this. Exile target creature card from a graveyard. Put X 1/1 counters on target creature where X is the power of that card. There you go. So that fits in with the whole idea of, you know, making massive threats and having all these big creatures that we can reuse from the graveyard. Then, Blood. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. So there you go. It's a nice fling effect, which is really what our commander wants to do. And I love this card because it fits both of the sort of directions this deck wants to go. We want to be scavenging from the graveyard and also then flinging things at our opponents. So a wonderful card that you can, using either side of this is always viable, but together it just creates a one-shot situation. I love it to pieces. Then, something that's not as sideways is Olivia Crimson Bride. Now, this section is all about bringing things back from the graveyard. 6 mana for a 3/4 Vampire Noble with flying and haste. When it enters, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire. Exile this creature. So obviously, our big threat is now coming in and attacking. But the awesome thing is that exile clause is only if that vampire leaves the battlefield, or a legendary vampire leaves. If that creature gets sacrificed to our commander, it doesn't matter. It goes back to the graveyard, so we can, again, use it next turn, get it back with Olivia once more. Really, really nice. Then we got Merrin of Clan Neltoth. 4 mana for a 3/4 Human Shaman. Whenever another creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. Hey! We're already collecting energy. Let's get some experience counters as well. At the beginning of your end step, choose target creature card in your graveyard. If that card's converted mana cost is less than or equal to the number of experience counters on it, return it to the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. So, as I've shown, we've got things like Blood Rush that we can do from the hand. So even getting something back to hand isn't the worst thing in the world. But we can rebuy one of our massive threats to chuck at our opponents. Then Artisan of Kozilek is a big massive threat that also reanimates a big massive threat. That's 2 big massive threats, double threats. 9 mana for a 10/9. When you cast it, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Annihilator 2. Oh, I love the Eldrazi. I really, really do. They're so, so cool and just so powerful. Annihilator 2, so when this creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents. It's a great way of generating salt. Then we've got Grave Waker, which is a rather expensive mana-wise, but I think it fits the deck. 6 mana for a 5/5 Bird Spirit, flying, and pay 7, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So a good way to just keep bringing things back, keep sacrificing them with our commander, and, you know, at the end of the day, you could sacrifice this to fling something at your opponent. Then we've got Dawn of the Dead. Much better in every way than that card. 5 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to play. That creature gains haste until the end of turn. Remove it from the game at the end of turn. Now remember, our commander's ability is to sack something at end of turn, and that exile clause for the creature we've brought back only cares about the end of turn. So if we sacrifice it before this trigger goes off, well, it's going to go back to the graveyard. We can rebuy it next turn and just keep attacking with a hasty threat. Works incredibly. One of my favorite cards ever printed. And then we've got Corpse Dance. 3 mana for an instant with buyback. So you can pay an additional 2 and it comes back to your hand. Return the top creature card of your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains haste until the end of turn. Exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So just like I've talked about with all of these exile clauses, this one, again, if we can sacrifice it at the end step, it'll go back to the graveyard and then we can rebuy it again. It is a massive pain in the ass to keep track of graveyard order and what went in last and all that sort of thing. But a card like that, it's well worth it for the payoff. So there we go, a nice reanimation sort of section. I wish I'd built this sort of frame thing so I could rotate cards, but I haven't. Maybe in the future I will. But please join me in the future by subscribing. And we're going to look at tons more cards, tons more dragons, tons. Just stuff. There's just going to be stuff flying at you everywhere. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.